Shadbir Bhaktir Prasiddhiti Utsahana Nishayadhairya Tattat Karma Pravartana Sangatyagat Sato Vritte Shadbir Bhaktir Prasiddhati Utsahana Nishayadhairya Tattat Karma Pravartana Sangatyagat Sato Vritte Shadbir Bhaktiha Prasiddhati. So, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Utsahan nishchayadhairyaat tattat karma pravartanat sangatyagat sato vritteh shadbhir bhakti prasiddhyati.
Okay. One more time, Prabhuji. I think you are singing nicely.
Utsahan nishchayadhairyaat tattat karma pravartanat sangatyagat sato vritteh shadbhir bhakti prasiddhyati.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. So please actually practice these verses, in the home as well, because you should be actually knowing these verses by heart as we actually, continue with the next verses. So when you come next time, actually, we would actually expect you to actually sing the verses without looking in the book. So you should know these verses by heart, the verse and translation. And as we previously discussed, and they are very, very important verses, actually these are the codes of Krishna consciousness. And if you actually, if you want to actually get to the stage of pure devotional service, as Srila Rupa Goswami and even the Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that these are actually the most important things, one should try to inculcate, and that will actually help you in your actually devotional service. So this verse, now we'll continue with word-to-word synonyms. So word-to-word synonyms translation of Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ji ki jai. So utsahat, by enthusiasm. Nishayat, by confidence. Dhairyat, by patience. Tat karma, various activities favorable for devotional service. Pravartanat, by performing. Sangatyagat, by giving up the association of non-devotees. Sataha, of the great previous acharyas. Vritteha, by following in the footsteps. Shadbihi, by the six. Bhaktihi, devotional service. Prasiddhati, advances or become successful. So if you look at the actually meaning, by enthusiasm, by confidence, by patience, various activities favorable for devotional service, by performing, by giving up the association of non-devotees, and of the great previous acharyas, by following in the footsteps, by these six devotional service, advances or become successful. So you can actually get the hint, just looking at the actual translation of each word. So here we'll go on to the translation. So there are 6 principles favorable to the execution of pure devotional services. Pure devotional service. 1, being enthusiastic. 2, endeavoring with the confidence. 3, being patient. 4, acting according to the regulative principles, such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna. Abandoning the association of non-devotees. Number 5, abandoning the association of non-devotees. And 6, following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. These 6 principles undoubtedly assure the complete success of pure devotional service. So these 6 activities are very, very important, and these are actually favorable. So in the previous verse, we actually discussed the 6 things that are actually, they are the hindrances, to our devotional services. But here, Srila Rupa Goswami has enumerated the 6 things that will actually help us progress on the path of devotional service. So the first one is being enthusiastic. Second one is endeavoring with the confidence, and the being patient, which is very, very important. And the fourth one, actually acting according to regulative principles. So in the previous verse, we actually discussed. So when we say regulative principle, so we already know the 4 regulative principles for the actually, Krishna consciousness. So those are the prohibitions: meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, and actually, intoxicants, actually consuming the intoxicants. So, but here, actually, these are the actually prescriptions. So, Shavanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna. So, the chanting the 16 rounds is also actually is actually prescription for the devotees. So, we will actually discuss all these 6 things in the detail as we actually go through the purport. So, before we go, I would like actually to actually read the translation, and then if you have any question on the translation itself, we can actually discuss that quickly. But we'll move on to the purport, and then actually we go one by one. Okay. Prabhu, you wanna just read the translation? Yeah.
There are 6 principles favorable to the execution of pure devotional service. 1. Being enthusiastic. 2. Endeavoring with confidence. 3. Being patient. 4. Acting according to regulative principles such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna. 5th. Abandoning the association of non-devotees. And 6th. Following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. These 6 principles undoubtedly assure the complete success of pure devotional service.
Okay. So we looked at the verse, we recited the verse, and we actually look at the translation as well. So before we actually continue with the purport, so these 6 things actually, the being enthusiastic and endeavoring with the confidence, being patient, and acting according to regulative principles, and abandoning the association of non-devotees. So the 5th one, we already discussed that in actually text 2 as well, actually how, is better to be in the association of devotees and actually give up the association of worldly people. The same point is being discussed in this verse as well. And the last one is actually talks about actually following the footsteps of previous acharyas. So that is also very important. And we will actually expand on that point as well as we go through the purport. So if you don't have any questions on the translation, then we'll continue with the purport, and then we will actually just discuss that as we go. And I expect that you have actually also must have read the purport beforehand. So if you have any questions also, please note that down. Actually, you can ask at the end of the session, or you can put the question in our intermediate WhatsApp group. So we can actually able to actually answer that as we go. So I will share the screen again. Prabhu, I think you are the only one who can able to read today. So there is, thank you for doing that. Okay. When you're ready, yeah.
Prabhu, is my voice clear?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah, nice and clear.
Purport. Devotional service is not a matter of sentimental speculation or imaginative ecstasy. Its substance is practical activity. Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu 1.1.11 has defined devotional service as follows. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavritam anukulena krishnanu shilenam bhaktir uttama. Uttama Bhakti, or unalloyed devotion onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, involves the rendering of devotional service in a way that is favorable to the Lord. This devotional service should be free from any extraneous motive and devoid of fruitive karma, impersonal jnana, and all other selfish desires. Bhakti is a sort of cultivation. As soon as we say cultivation, we must refer to activity. Cultivation of spirituality does not mean sitting down ideally for meditation or as some pseudo yogis teach. Such idle meditation may be good for those who have no information of devotional service, and for this reason, it is sometimes recommended as a way to check distracting materialistic activities. Meditation means stopping all nonsensical activities, at least for the time being. Devotional service, however, not only puts an end to all nonsensical mundane activities, but also engages one in meaningful devotional activities.
Okay. 1 minute, Prabhuji. Before we go on, so here, Srila Prabhupada actually in the first sentence, of the purport, where he's saying the devotional service is not a matter of sentimental speculation or imaginative ecstasy. Its substance is practical activity. So, what do we understand by that actually sentence? So, what Srila Prabhupada is saying here, it's not actually sentimental. Some people actually think bhakti as a sentimental thing. They do have some faith, but they do not do anything about it. Or some people, there are some people they think they are in ecstasy, some imaginary world, but actually that is not the real thing. As Srila Prabhupada always, actually, we have studied that actually in a previous verse as well. So Srila Prabhupada saying his substance is practical activity. So what does that mean? So what Srila Prabhupada is saying here is a devotional service is actually, involve the number of activities, as a spirit soul, spirit soul nature is actually is always active, and because spirit soul is by nature is active, it always want to actually engage in doing something. And as per its constitutional position, as we know, the spirit soul is a eternal servitor of the Lord Krishna, and he always want to actually render service, render loving devotional service unto Lord Krishna. So he's always engaged, and that's how he derived the great deal of pleasure. So when you actually render service to Krishna on a pure transcendental platform, then the pleasure that is obtained is ever increasing. There is no end to it, and unless we test it, we will not understand that. So devotional service does not mean in the next paragraph, Srila Prabhu is talking about the pseudo yogis. Sometimes they actually teach people to just sit at one place and try to meditate. So as Srila Prabhu says, it may be beneficial for some people who are actually totally engrossed in material activities, and they cannot think of anything else. So just to actually get them away, make them stop those activities and sit at one place. So it may be beneficial for them. So Ambrish also shared this realization when he used to do mantra meditation class. The people who used to come there, so they just needed to be actually told to sit down at one place, breathe in, breathe out, and relax, and just stop thinking about their actually materialistic activities, whatever, it may be regarding the job or family. Just stop thinking about that and try to just focus on their breathing. So even that is actually beneficial, actually it will help them relax, and they can actually bit free from the anxiety for the time being. So that may be beneficial to the certain extent, but that's just for a time being. So just a minute, actually, I got someone at the door. Sorry about that. So where we are at? Okay. So we're discussing the devotional service is actually a very active business, and you have also seen that actually the things we do, even in our Hare Krishna WECAN program, we're always active. We just did yesterday, the free prasad distribution at our center as well. So that involves a lot of activities. It's not about actually just going at one place, sitting and try to meditate. So it's very active business. And if you're not active, that is actually contrary to the nature of the spirit soul, and that is not going to be very natural. So Srila Prabhupada he has explained that very nicely in the purport in the coming paragraph. So we will focus on that point again. But for now, we will just read the purport and we'll discuss on that actually Sri Prahlad Maharaja's instruction there. Yeah.
So, Prabhu, should I continue?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Sri Prahlad Maharaj recommends Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnoho Smaranam Pada Sevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyam Atma Nivedanam. The 9 processes of devotional service are as follows. Number 1, hearing the name and glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Number 2, chanting his glories. Number 3, remembering the Lord. 4, serving the Lord's feet. 5th, worshipping the deity. 6th, offering obeisances unto the Lord. 7th, acting as the Lord's servant. 8th, making friends with the Lord. 9th, surrendering oneself fully to the Lord. Can you scroll? Thank you. Shravanam or hearing is the first step in acquiring transcendental knowledge. One should not give oral reception to unauthorized persons, but should approach the proper person as recommended in Bhagavad Gita 4.34. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshinah. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. So here, Srila Prabhupada has gave the reference here of Sri Prahlad Maharaja's instruction in Srimad Bhagavatam. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Pada Sevanam, Archanam Vandanam Dasyam, Sakhyam Atmanivedam. So this is very, very important verse and very famous verse. Almost all the devotees know about this. So these are the actually 9 processes of bhakti, for devotional service. So it is said that actually if one can able to perfect any one of them, he can still able to go back to Godhead. So these are very, very important, and this also represent actually the active nature of a devotional service. So these are the actually 9 ways you can able to actually serve Krishna. So when we say Shravanam, so this is very, very important. Shravanam, actually listening or hearing the name and glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that actually also involves chanting. So when you do the chanting, you chant and you listen. Yeah, you Shravanam. You also actually listen to the various actually our devotional kirtans, sung by our pure devotees. And they are actually in itself are very instructive. We learn a lot from them as well. And we also listen to the devotees' realization, their different classes on Srimad Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So these are all actually related to Lord Krishna, and to his pastimes and paraphernalia and his qualities. So when we listen to this, so only hearing, actually it purifies the heart of the listener. So Lord's name, fame, paraphernalia, all these things, anything related to Krishna, they are very potent, and they are very purifying. So by just listening, actually we can derive the great benefit. And next is say Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. So the Kirtanam, so we chant. So chanting is also one of, is a Kirtanam. But just singing devotional songs and chanting or Sankirtan, the people where actually all the devotees come together and they actually do the Harinam, on the roads or any location. So that is all good, that is also Kirtanam. But Srila Prabhupada, I was reading, so Kirtanam is also referring to actually studying the books, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, So you study, you actually, try to understand the instructions given in those holy books. And we try to actually realize what that means. And we try to implement them. So that is also Kirtanam. So sometimes people think Kirtanam means only chanting and Harinam and listening to singing the different Kirtans. But actually studying at one place, meditating on these points, and also preaching is also Kirtanam, because by preaching, you are actually spreading that knowledge to other people, people who are interested to hear, or even to the devotees. So that is also Kirtanam. So when you do these activities, Shavanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam. So Smaranam actually happens automatically. So when you are engaged in hearing and chanting and studying and preaching, obviously you are 24/7, you are actually thinking about Krishna. So when you engage in these activities, the Smaranam is happening all the time. So Srila Prabhupada says, you should actually organize your activities in such a way that you should be able to remember Krishna all the time, somehow. But in initial stages, at least you should do your 16 rounds daily, spend maybe an hour reading Srila Prabhupada books, or listening to devotees' realizations. So that way you can actually cultivate this devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada referred to that point of actually, when we say cultivation, it's a practical activity, right? So you have to do things, you have to run around, you have to make time to come to the classes, listen to, devotees, what they have to say on Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhāgavatam, and actually try to implement what they are saying. So this is actually very active business. It's not just sitting at one place idly and try to meditate on some, materialistic objects. Because some people do that, and that's what they call is meditation. But meditation is much more than actually just sitting at one place. So Srila Prabhupada also called this process of actually, when you try to do these 9 processes, then you are actually engaged always. You actually go and shop for Krishna. You cook nice bhoga for Krishna, So you can do the offering for Krishna. And even to just do the preaching, it takes a lot of effort, as you can see, So His Grace Ambrish Prabhu is organizing all these programs on Sunday. So a lot of efforts goes behind this. So you are always active in devotional service. And this actually, these activities purify your life and actually also gives the opportunity to people who are willing to receive this. So all these 9 processes of bhakti, hearing, chanting, remembering, and also serving the Lord's feet. So what that means, serving the Lord's feet means obviously you can do various services, for Krishna. So be it in a temple or be it in your center. So you're not restricted to any, institution. You can do service anywhere, So preaching is not actually restricted to one place. Now, because we are conducting this preaching program through Hare Krishna WECAN online. Anybody can join from anywhere. So it's not restricted, So Srila Prabhupada actually may actually highlight this point that nothing can check the bhakti, It's very dynamic. So, and then the 5th one, what is saying here, is worshipping the deity. So you must have now, Avinash Prabhu also must have introduced you to the actual deity worship. And all the intermediate class devotees know actually what is involved in the deity worship. So you can actually establish it actually in a small temple in your home. And once you do that, then you have to do a lot of activities, right? You have to wake up early in the morning. Srila Prabhupada normally expect devotees to wake up 4:30 in the morning, and do the Mangalarti. And even His Holiness Mahavishnu Goswami Maharaj used to wake up very early, 2:30, 3 o'clock. They take shower, actually wash their clothes, everything is ready by 4:30. So it's very, very active, and you need a lot of enthusiasm to do these activities. And that point we will discuss, being enthusiastic, what that means. And even because we are the beginners, we are just starting up on this path, still doing the deity worship at home, it takes, you have to organize a flower. So that means you have to have a small garden. If you have a piece of land, you can grow, you can take care of them, you can offer it to the Krishna. You have to shop, that means you have to go to the work, earn some money, and you engage that money in buying things, that you can offer it to Krishna. And also you can take care of your family if they want to become a Krishna conscious. So that also become a devotional thing. If they are engaged as well, then taking care of them can become a devotional service as well. So devotional service is very active and very dynamic. Number 6 here say offering obeisances unto the Lord. So yeah, actually, showing the respect to the deities and showing the respect to your spiritual master as well, because he's the representative of Lord Krishna. So he is as good as God. So we must actually, it's very important that one should accept a spiritual master. You should have Shiksha Guru or Diksha Guru who can actually lead you. So there is actually Bhagavad Gita verse, Srila Prabhupada took the reference, and acting as a Lord's servant. So yeah, the similar point. Actually, we should act as a Lord's servant, and there is a great example of Lord Hanuman, how he actually served Lord Ram. He engaged everything in his service, even his anger, when he burned the Lanka. So actually, because in the first verse, we actually talked about controlling the anger, but that is actually one example that Lord Hanuman, Hanuman, the great devotee of Lord Ram, he showed that even anger can be actually spiritualized if you use it in the service of the Lord. So anything can be spiritualized, whatever you see in this material world, if you use it if you use that in a Lord's service. 8th one state, making friends with the Lord. Yeah. So there are actually 5 ways you can have the relationship with Lord Krishna. So you can also become a friend of Lord Krishna. So one of the great example is Lord Arjun Maharaj, in Bhagavad Gita, is very dear friend of Lord Krishna. And as you know, that there was actually conversation that happened between Arjun Maharaj and Lord Krishna in Kurukshetra. So initially they were friends, but when time came, Arjun Maharaj surrendered, in front of Lord Krishna, and he accepted him as his guru. So the discussion happened after that was actually the instruction that we see in Bhagavad Gita. So one can actually become a friend, even in the Vrindavan, when Lord Krishna was present there, in his childhood pastimes, all the Gopas and Gopis, they played with Krishna. Yeah. And last one, surrendering oneself fully to the Lord, right? So you can actually surrender everything you have. And we all have actually listened to the realization of Amrish Prabhu on Bali Maharaj. So there was a special class was given on that pastime. So how Bali Maharaj surrendered everything, even his body at the end. So one can actually engage everything that they have in the Lord's service. And there is a very good example from Srimad Bhagavatam where Amrish Maharaj, is a great king. And he was well known because he perfected all these 9 things, all the 9 processes of bhakti. He engaged all his senses in serving the Lord. So that is actually a great example that I think we can actually, we learn a lot from that, how one can actually, even he's a king, it's not that actually he was just a devotee, full-time devotee. He was a king. So he has a big kingdom to look after as well. But still, he actually managed all the things in such a way that actually he engaged all his senses, in serving the Lord. So these 9 processes of bhakti are very, very important. And as I mentioned, even if you perfect even one of them, is still good enough for you to actually go back to the Godhead. So Srila Prabhupada saying, Shravanam or hearing is the first step in acquiring transcendental knowledge. And one should not give oral reception to unauthorized persons, but should approach a proper person as recommended in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 34. So this statement is very important. One should not give oral reception to unauthorized persons. So first we should know who is authorized and who is not authorized, right? So this is not a new point. I'm pretty sure, I think we discussed this point many times, that actually we have to choose, to whom we listen. So as actually what we learn, we should only listen to the devotees that are within our disciplic succession, parampara. In Srimad Bhagavatam, in introduction, Srila Prabhupada actually mentioned this, that actually if you listen to the people who are not within our parampara or not following the mood of our parampara, listening to those people, even they are talking on Srimad Bhagavatam or Srimad Bhagavad Gita, it is not actually going to helpful for our devotional service. In fact, Srila Prabhupada says, he compares that actually milk touched by a serpent, listening to these people. So it's very poisonous, it's not going to actually help us. So that's why we have to be very, very particular, So whatever we are learning in this program, that we should actually implement it, We should be very particular to whom we should listen. So even actually, because you all actually, very technologically savvy, so you will go online and try to search, things, and you will find all kind of stuff, So everything is not going to helpful. So for the time being, unless you are properly trained, you should just actually follow Avinash Prabhu and Amrish Prabhu, whatever they are teaching you, and actually only study the books, written by Srila Prabhupada, and read his purport, listen to what he has to say. And that is more than enough for us to actually progress on this path, So he is actually taking, Srila Prabhupada took the reference here. Tadviti pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshina. So just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively. So submissively is very important, We should not actually ask very challenging questions, So we should have that actually submissive mood. So inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul, that is spiritual master, can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So we all know that actually the role of spiritual master is very, very important. So they have already walked this path. They have learned. They have studied. They have realized Krishna, and they know the truth. So they are very well equipped to guide us. Because as we are. So source of our knowledge must be very, very authentic and should come from our parampara. And especially in Hare Krishna, we can, we actually follow a particular mode, the mood that is set by His Holiness Mahavishnu Goswami Maharaj. And we actually try to follow, his transcendental melodies, his instruction very nicely. And that is actually, it has helped me a lot. And you will hear the similar realization, when you actually listen to realization classes that actually, in our Hare Krishna WECAN, that we are very much actually touched by all the instruction by His Holiness Mahavishnu Goswami Maharaj. So we should be very choosy, to whom we should listen and to whom we should follow. Is very, very important. Any questions on what we discussed? Okay, we'll continue, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. It is further recommended in the Mundaka Upanishad, Tad Vijnanartham Sagurum Eva Bhigachet. To understand that transcendental science, one must approach a bona fide spiritual master. Thus, this method of submissively receiving transcendental confidential knowledge is not merely based on mental speculation. In this regard, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Rupa Goswami, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagavana Jiva Guru Krishna Prasada Paye Bhakti Lata Bija. In the course of traversing the universal creation of Brahma, some fortunate soul may receive the seed of Bhakti Lata, the creeper of devotional service. This is all by the grace of Guru and Krishna. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 19.151. The material world is a place of confinement for the living entities who are by nature Anandamaya, pleasure seeking. They actually want to be free from the confinement of this world of conditional happiness. But not knowing the process of liberation, they are bound to transmigrate from one species of life to another and from one planet to another. In this way, the living entities are wandering throughout the material universe. When by good fortune one comes in contact with a pure devotee and hears from him patiently, one begins to follow the path of devotional service. Such an opportunity is offered to a person who is sincere. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness is giving such a chance to humanity at large. If by fortune one takes advantage of this opportunity to engage in devotional service, the path of liberation immediately opens.
Okay. So here again, similar point. Actually, Srila Prabhupada also shared the reference from Mukunda Upanishad. So to understand that transcendental science, one must approach again a bona fide spiritual master. And this method of submissively receiving transcendental comprehension knowledge is not merely based on mental speculation. In this regard, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Rupa Goswami. So here, the reference given, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyamana Jiva, Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lada Bija. So what we understand by this, so it is said that actually spirit soul by nature is a Anandamayo Bhashat, Anandamay. So everyone is actually running after seeking the pleasure and the happiness. So that we experience in this material world. Okay. But by actually running behind happiness, the whole world is running behind happiness. So, and most of the people think that actually money will make them happy. That's why everyone is actually engaged in some kind of business. So we are actually coming to the point where we want to discuss what is it meant by being enthusiastic and how it is going to help us in devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada, as he actually pointed out here, that spirit soul nature is actually anandamaya, pleasure seeking. So as I said, we are working very, very hard to become happy. And everyone actually, they're actually going to work or doing some kind of business, working maybe 8, 9, 12 hours a day. And still, even earning all that money, we still do not get a peace of mind or happiness. So what that mean? So what's happening here, as I said, spirit soul by nature is very, very active. He has to engage in some kind of service. And if he behaves, or actually if he acts according to his dharma or constitutional position, that is to be engaged in service of the Lord, then that's the right kind of engagement for him. And that will, by that way, he can actually attain that actually anand, paramanand. But when he actually come into this material world and under the influence of these three modes of material nature, then he forgets Krishna, but his nature remains the same. He's active, he has to actually do something. So he actually rendering service to other things, he rendering service to himself, to his family, to things he like, the property, car, whatever. So he's always active in rendering service to someone, but actually the object he's serving is wrong. And that's why they're actually not, he's not actually achieving that goal of being happy, right? He's always a frustration is there. And that's why Srila Prabhupada says that, and he says, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagavani Jiva. In this Brahmand, the universe created by Lord Brahma, all these actually spirit souls, they're wandering, from one planet to another planet. Sometimes they acquire a body of cat or dog, sometimes become a human, sometimes become insect, So this is a perpetual cycle of birth and death. They are going up and down, as Srila Prabhupada says. And they were actually, basically it's a waste of time, just going into this perpetual cycle of birth and death, if they're not making any tangible progress, towards becoming a Krishna conscious. So obviously they will evolve, from one space to another species, and finally, if they get a chance of actually becoming a human, then Srila Prabhupada says in the next actually paragraph, one should accept this opportunity to return home back to Godhead very enthusiastically, right? So one should be very enthusiastic, if if he receives this opportunity. And that Jiv is called Bhagyavan Jiv. So while actually wandering throughout different universes, throughout different bodies, when that soul comes in contact with pure devotee of the Lord or spiritual master, so he's very fortunate that he has got that opportunity. So here also we have got the opportunity. We can actually come in contact with his Hare Krishna WECAN program, Ambrish Prabhu, Srila Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada. So we are very fortunate that actually we have got this opportunity to learn about this Bhakti Yoga science. So we should accept this opportunity very enthusiastically. That's what Srila Prabhupada is saying here. So we should not waste this opportunity. Human life is very, very important life, and it is a life of responsibility. One has given, we have got intelligence, and we should actually employ this intelligence in a right way, so we can actually break this cycle of birth and death, and we go back to Godhead. So we come to the point where we're discussing what is meant by enthusiastic. So we are all actually trying to follow this. So initially, when we joined this program, most of the people are very enthusiastic. They want to actually come to the program, listen because they like what they're listening to. Maybe some people find it very actually they love the chanting. When they initially start. It may not be true for everyone. Some people actually need to be pushed to actually start chanting. Sometimes it feels like it's actually just doing one round per day is a big task. But some people might be very enthusiastic in the beginning. And it's very important to actually maintain this actually enthusiasm, on a long term, because when we start following, and then after a few years, if this enthusiasm goes down, then we started to lose interest. Then it is not going to actually help us to progress in this business. So the enthusiasm, when we are not enthusiastic, what does that mean? Actually, either we are lazy or we are indifferent. We have actually lacking interest in the spiritual matters. And that's actually stems out from indifference. Okay, so I think this is an important point, and because we don't have much time, we got only 4 minutes left. I think we will continue this topic from the next class. But actually just meditate on this point that actually, since you have been following this program for now more than a year, and if you think that actually there is a change in enthusiasm, then why that is happening? Because first thing, if you are feeling enthusiastic, why you are feeling enthusiastic, and how I can maintain this enthusiasm so I can use it in a right way, so I can progress on this path. Okay. So we will discuss this point in detail next week. But if you don't have any burning questions now, then we can actually conclude this program. So we can have a couple of minutes break, and we will start with our actually main program. Okay. Any questions? And if you have any burning questions, just post it in our intermediate group, so we can also discuss that next week. Okay. No worries then. Thank you, Hare Krishna devotees. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you, Ambrish Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
You very much. Hare Krishna. So we'll take a 3 minutes break. Don't go anywhere. You can freshen up. We'll be watching Srila Prabhupada's Kirtan in the meantime then. Hare Krishna.
Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Sri Rupam